Are gearing up to go live here. All right, we are live. What's going on, everyone? I am Travis Brown from the Eagle, all my Aggie Nation, all the above. Robert Sesson is here with me, the sports editor, Aggie coverage guy extraordinaire. Our special guest this week for the Aggie Zoom hangout is Tom Chattel of the Omaha World Herald. He is up there covering the mess, the drama that is the Big Ten right now, and Nebraska and all. What's the last couple of weeks been like for y'all?
Sorry, I think you cut out there at the end, but you're asking about the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, what's the last couple of weeks been like for y'all?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say it's great to be back in Texas and Big 12 country. I guess SEC now. I don't recognize Robert without a Hawaiian shirt, but I
appreciate it. Hey, all right.
It's August. It may be too quick for that. I don't know. Maybe they don't allow that in the SEC. They're pretty buttoned up there. I know. It's nuts. For the Big Ten kind of led us along like Lucy with the football, thinking, okay, we're going to give you a schedule. We're going to play later, or we're going to have the dates. And they were the first conference to come out and say we're going to play, and then they hit I believe the first one to offer a week by week schedule. 5 days later, they're the first ones to pull the plug. So it shocked a lot of people, and yet it wasn't a surprise. I thought the Big Ten all along would be too conservative and really maybe conservative is the wrong word for Chicago, an area, but I don't want to get into politics. But I thought that they would be very cautious, and they would be into science and into medicine, and I didn't think that they would play at all. So I was not surprised by that. But they didn't really give a lot of information, well, besides saying in a press release and an interview with the new commissioner on the Big Ten Network, which said absolutely nothing. He reminded me of a couple of the old Big Eight commissioners by the fact that he knew how to not answer questions. So he had that down pat. So I really was very disappointed by that. I wrote, and Nebraska came out and said, we want to keep playing. We'd like to find some games, call people up and see if we can play some games this fall. And that really that really bothered the Big Ten, especially the fans and the pundits, the people out there, media people. First you had Michael Wilbon at the ESPN, who's a Northwestern grad. He ripped Nebraska and said, "Get the hell out of our league if you don't want to be here." The next day, Desmond Howard went on ESPN and said basically the same thing. And lo and behold, of course, I took that and wrote a column saying, we got to go back to the Big 12. This is kind of this is not the place to be. There's money. Money's not everything. And there's good money to be had, other places too. Because I thought the reaction was really strong. I thought it surprised me for a league where you have scandals at Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State's had some trouble, Iowa's had some trouble. And nobody's ever said get the hell out of the league before until Nebraska said they wanted to play some football. So it was all very strange. But in any case, last week was a kind of a whirlwind. Ohio State came out and said that they also want to play some games. Then the Iowa football parents came out and they want to play. They sent a letter to the commissioner demanding that they play football this fall. Then Ohio State parents did it, Nebraska parents, Penn State. I guess yesterday Michigan parents came out. It's one after another. So I've had a lot to write about for not having any damn games practices. I've had a lot to write about, and top of it all, I dropped my daughter off at college last week at Missouri. So almost bought an SEC hat just so I could wear it around Big Ten country and make everybody mad.
Yeah, Tom, I think I speak for Aggies. If you've been to Nebraska, that's one of the places you want to go see a ball game. They're so passionate. They understand football. They applaud the other team for their good plays. What I'm getting to is I just can't picture not football in Lincoln this year. Now, that being said, is I also can't, not see it at SEC spots. They're trying to have it, but how are people going to adapt up? I mean, no football I just can't believe it up in Nebraska. That's just hard to fathom. And I'm sure that's why people are fighting for, say, they'll go play anybody. Maybe they'll play a junior college. I don't know.
Well, Nebraska's background on this is coming from the Big 8 and Big 12, which has a little bit more of a spirit of independence. Of course, we all know about Texas and the Lost Odds and how that worked, the Longhorn Network. But, the Big 12 and Big 8 always, and I guess maybe the Southwest Conference too, kind of ran with sort of entrepreneurial sort of a flavor where, we're not going to hold you back. If you want to go out and do something, go right ahead. And Big Ten is not that way. So this really did not sit well with the Big Ten. But Scott Frost is a little different animal. He's not Mike Riley. Mike Riley would have sat back and just said, okay. But Scott knows how important football is to the state. And the city of Lincoln will be out about $30 million without football. That's going to devastate a lot of places downtown. A lot of campuses will be like that. A lot of towns. The athletic budget, it's $100 million hit without football season. That's going to hurt people. People will get laid off. They'll they might cut sports. But might have to. So and then you think about the mental anguish, the stuff people will go through. It's not. There's a lot of collateral damage to this decision, and so part of Scott's the method to the madness, if you wanted to, last week was basically he was sticking up for the state, the school, and his team. He had everybody's back. And that did not go unnoticed. People very much rallied behind him, and he already had everybody's, loyalty, but it's even more so now. And he gained a lot from that. Of course, people in the Big Ten had never liked him because he came in kind of cocky, as he likes to do. But now he's had a lot of people join him. He has a lot more allies in the Big Ten than he thought. So, yeah, it's not going to be good. It's not. But I don't know. I have not thought of Texas high school, but the Nebraska High School Association has said green light to football. They're having high school football. Now, the Omaha Public School District has said no fall sports. But I give kudos to the state association. Every county and city and town in the state is not the same. They all have different numbers. Many of these small towns have only had 2 or 3 cases since March. So you're going to tell them that they can't play football. So there will be football in the state. It'll be on Friday night. Then if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, you're hoping you have that. So it's, but what a strange deal. Over in Iowa State can play, but Iowa can't. It's just, it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. But everybody's kind of using their own medical data on this thing, and some of it is the same, and some of it's not.
So I know there's a lot of people in this region who knew and followed a lot about Nebraska when they were in the Big 12, like we said. For those who may not have followed so much into the transition from basically leaving the Big 12 into kind of all of the turmoil that's happened in the last couple of weeks, what has Nebraska's relationship been like in the Big Ten, and how ingrained have they become over the last years that led it? Has there been strife like this before? From your perspective, what is Nebraska's relationship with the Big Ten been like in the last year?
It really hasn't been. They've been, a lot of people don't even know that they exist. Nebraska was a big dog, whether they wanted to say so or believe it or not. They were one of the big dogs in the Big 12. They had Tom Osborne had a problem with Texas, and a lot of people did, but it wasn't as bad, as my opinion, as everybody thought. But so Nebraska thinks they're going to go into the Big Ten, and they're going to be Nebraska. Well, the program wasn't in that position to do that, and they weren't playing physical. The Big Ten, I made fun of the Big Ten my whole life. I thought it was boring and not really imaginative. And boy, it's very physical. Every week is like a street fight, and you better have an offensive line and the defensive line that's going to be able to hold up. And they didn't. They were gutting. They came from the Big 12, which was a lot more finesse, and so it took them a while to do that. In fact, they're still doing that because Bo Pelini and Mike Riley didn't pay enough attention to that. And believe it or not, they've been in this league 10 years, and they're still trying to build an offensive line. So it's but in terms of politics, and Big Ten doesn't even know that they exist. I've been in here 10 years. You think 10 years in Big Ten press boxes, you meet people by accident. I've met one SID in 10 years.
Wow.
And probably 3 or 4 writers. I mean, a lot of these Big Ten press boxes are like two. They got 2 sides, and then they got a connecting hallway in the middle for suites. But one side is the home media, the other side is the visiting media. And nobody talks. Nobody, meets in the middle, and it's just the way they want it. And so, okay, that's not how I came up, and that's not why I love college football. I love the Saturdays because I get to see friends and reunite and reacquaint. But it's a different world, and that's kind of how Nebraska was treated. Like, okay, you're in the league now. Good luck, and let us know if you need anything. It's not, they didn't really, and Nebraska has not done anything either on football. They have not. Again, they weren't ready to get physical. They won the division the second year and got blown out in the championship game. It's been one bad thing after another. The one year where they really had a good relationship, I felt like it was good, was when their punter, Sam Foltz, died in a car wreck right before the season started with a Michigan State kicker. And they both died in the wreck. And every week, somebody from the Big Ten was giving the Foltz family some kind of a token of their appreciation, a framed jersey or some kind of. They go basically meet them on the field and give them a hug, and there was always a good sign of friendship every week from the Big Ten. That was cool, but I think the Big Ten is kind of amused by Nebraska. Nebraska's never stopped talking about what they're going to do to you, and they haven't been able to back it up. So I think they're kind of amused by Nebraska. They respect what Nebraska has done, but they aren't really impressed. And so it's, and it's still weird to see, you go to the Big Ten media days, they have a big luncheon, and they show Nebraska football highlights from the 90s. It's like, it doesn't fit here. And you go on the Big Ten network, you don't have Tommy Frazier or Grant Wistrom as like a Big Ten legend. Not really. It's so weird to be here, in my opinion.
Well, it sucks then that the media can't get together and be friends and complain about everything that's wrong about the press box, the food, whatever. That's not fair, Tom. That's not part of the job. That isn't the way it's supposed to be. I feel for you for that. I really do, because that's one of the highlights of this job, getting together with your fellow comrades, complaining about things in Oklahoma or Nebraska or
Absolutely.
Iowa or whatever.
I miss press box barbecue.
Yeah.
I miss barbecue, period. I miss next.
So
Period. It's like the hot dog tour.
in 10 years from now, hopefully when I'm in an old folks home, is Nebraska going to be in the Big Ten when I watch TV then, or are they going to be somewhere else?
Yeah, I think they'll probably be here because the academians, the presidents of Nebraska will never let them, you're not leaving that league on my watch. There's too much money, too much academic stature, too much potential for grant money and foundation money, and the University of Nebraska Medical Center here in Omaha is really a benefactor of that, and so there's a lot of that. I think, and I wrote this, Scott Frost's system would be better in the Big 12. Imagine him going up against Lincoln Riley or Tom Herman. That'd be fun. And it's and they always recruited Texas. So they haven't really found a place where they recruit up here. But here's my thing, and I don't know what's I can't predict the future, but I wonder the next round of TV negotiations if the money's going to be as good as it's ever been. I also wonder if there's no football this fall, and a lot of places, a lot of programs, and like budgets are going to get hit hard. What would travel be like? I mean, the Big Ten goes from Lincoln to New Jersey. It's ridiculous. When you think of the non-revenue, and of course you guys know about that in the SEC, when you think about the non-revenue sports, I just wonder how much money is going to be left for everybody to get on an airplane and travel. Is the future maybe conferences that are a lot closer together, and we can get on a bus, and you don't have to travel over 2 time zones. I wonder about that, and so we'll see. I think the only way that they would leave the Big Ten is if something happened to the Big Ten, but let me check the wire. I haven't checked it in about a half hour, so I'm not sure. The way this thing's going, more and more people are mad.
So true.
So what does, I know some information is kind of starting to come out about this, either from what you've heard or what you expect. What does the fall look like for football, for Big Ten sports, for Nebraska sports, and also along that, what was the initial return to play looking like as far as testing positive numbers? Just kind of what did the fall and what does the fall look like now?
Well, Michigan State had an outbreak earlier in July, but we really never gave it a chance to really see what would happen when the students came back to campus, and that was kind of my point. Now yesterday, Michigan State shut down classes; they're all remote now. So I guess maybe that would have happened to them, but I don't know. I mean, right now, I don't think there will be football. I don't think they're going to, despite all the petitions and parents, marching on Chicago. I don't think the Big Ten will budge. I don't think they'll go back on it. So I don't think they'll be. Now the big talk is they're going to try to play in January, and they're going to get like 2 of these domes in the Big Ten, like Minneapolis and Indianapolis or wherever. They're going to get domes and try to have some kind of bubble. And please tell me how that's going to work. How do you, in basketball, bubble works because you can play basketball every day. Football, you play every week. So you're going to keep at least 60 football players in one city for a month to play 4 games. I mean, how much is that going to cost? in January. I don't get that. So I personally don't think it's going to be any spring football. Yeah, there might be some plans, but you can't play spring and then play in the fall. Whatever they would do in the spring would be sort of a half-ass, halfway attempt. You wouldn't have the NFL players, the draft picks. And plus, the real commissioner of college football, Nick Saban, he just stained it for everybody.
JV.
He said yesterday it would be JV football. That was a smart play on his part, and he killed it. I mean, who wants to do that? Who wants to play JV football? Who wants to admit that they're playing JV football? And by him saying that, I got to think the SEC won't be on board with any spring football. If you can't have the SEC, you're not going to have a national championship. So I thought that was interesting that he came out and said that.
Hey, Tom, I know we're not paying you don't have an hour, but I want a Cliff version of why isn't Nebraska anymore?
Well, they lost their way. And that way is basically hard work, walk-ons, but basically it's good, smart football. It's having an identity that works. And Nebraska, they always play. They played physical because in the Big Eight nobody else was as physical as they were. It always worked, but they were always a step ahead, whether it was in the weight room or Osborne would have a trick play, or nobody was better at special teams or the details. We used to joke when I was in Kansas City covering the Big Eight. We used to call Oklahoma the Wild West or the OK Corral. Nebraska was like East Germany. It was like they were just robots, and they never made a mistake. And they weren't always the most talented, but they were so efficient. And they lost their way. The athletic director who fired Frank Solich. Now that program in 2002 and 2003 was kind of wearing down. The old staff, the old dynasty staff was getting older. The recruiting hadn't been, so it needed a jump start, and they got that. Then the new AD, who's from Nebraska and grew up in Nebraska, decided he wanted to do it a different way. Excuse me. So he fired Solich and he tried to bring in Dave Wannstedt or Houston Nutt or Dickie Nutt or Mike Zimmer, he kept trying to hire what he thought would be big names, glamorous names, and they all turned him down because you don't want to replace a guy who went 9-3. So you ended up with Bill Callahan. He didn't know what to do. College football. He wasn't a college football coach. He ran it like an NFL for the NFL system. They forgot how to block. Forgot how to develop. Development was always the cornerstone of Nebraska football. They always had 200 players, and they always ran all these stations at practice, and they developed everybody. It was a machine. And then they hired Bo Pelini, who was a very good football coach, but not a CEO or a guy who would really run a program with a lot of those things in mind. He always complained about you couldn't get players here. He won a lot of games, but it never, by the time he was done, they were getting blown out a lot. It was showing cracks. So then you hire I could write a book about all this. I would, but I'm not sure anybody would buy it. But especially up here, they don't want to be reminded of it. But then the president, the chancellor in charge brought in, he fired that one AD, Steve Peterson. He brought in Osborne. And Tom wasn't the best AD. He did some good things, but and then and then Osborne and the Chancellor got into things crossways. So Osborne left. And they hired an AD, Sean Eichhorst, who I believe is now in Austin, who was more of like a lawyer or an accountant than an AD. He hired Mike Riley because because the image it's one after another, one wrong move after another. That's how they got here. Now they got the guy. They got to give him time, and he's got to get used to the Big Ten. And they're better in the offensive defensive line than they've been, and they've got people coming. But he's gonna try to win like Oregon in this league. That's gonna be fun to watch.
I have to shift gears on you a little bit and talk about my most favorite sports thing there is in the world. You have to tell me what it was like not having a College World Series in Omaha this year, and what the College World Series people are talking about as things move ahead to another spring that is kind of up in the air.
It was devastating. It left a hole in our heart. It didn't feel like Omaha. It didn't feel like we lived in Omaha this year because we didn't have a College World Series to remind us of Omaha, to remind us of why we love this city. And we didn't have that. And I walked around the stadium that week. The streets were empty. It was like a ghost town, literally, something you'd see in my old Western. Hotels were quiet. Restaurants were closed. It was devastating. And it was hard to get over. It really was. And I just hope we have one next year. I don't think there's any guarantee of anything right now, but that's our favorite. If we had to describe Omaha, you'd say College World Series, where we get to roll out the red carpet, we get to party, and we get to welcome visitors in and show them about all the great people here and all the stuff we've done. And it's all about hospitality and old school sports, handshakes, I guess fist bumps now, but autographs, kids and dads and grandpas going to games, grandmas too, just all that stuff, ice cream. It's the state fair of all the sporting events. And to me, it's my favorite. It was tough. It was really tough. We lost a lot of money on it, but it wasn't about the money. That was a lot closer to home. That was more about our soul, if I may. It was of all the things we lost, that was probably the toughest.
Steve, you got anything else?
You have your questions you always ask. I thought you wanted.
That's what I was going to go for. Yeah. So
Tom's been great so far. We need to. We're not paying him, so we need to give him a break here.
Right. We'll close out with this, and we've been doing this summer, and like I've said to everyone, how we as sports writers have gotten through producing content this summer is making this the summer of nostalgia. So looking back on your career, I'll kind of put this in multiple different ways, and you can pick which way you want to answer. Kind of what I've asked people is maybe what is one of your favorite stories of something that you've covered, or one of the favorite athletes that you covered, and then I'll kind of put a B on that because I know that you had involvement in the Big 12 and stuff like that. So maybe also a favorite coverage story that involved Texas A&M for the people down here. Anything that comes to mind when you think of just your favorite funny or memorable moment from a career with athletes and events and all the above.
Yeah, I've got a lot of stories. If I do those, I'll be here. You guys will have to you'll have to go to the bathroom or something, run out of room. But I always tell, I can't tell any Big 8 Skyrider stories because what happens on the Skyriders has to stay there. But the story I'll tell is classic of the era and the way things used to be, the way things can't be probably anymore. But this was October of 1988. I was working at the Kansas City Star covering the Big 8. I went to Manhattan, Kansas to cover the Kansas State Nebraska game. And it was a 1 o'clock game, and back then every game was 1 o'clock or 1:30. So I forget why. I think I had to do a basketball interview, so I went in Friday afternoon, spend the night Friday night in Manhattan at the luxurious Manhattan Holodome. Back then, the Holodomes, they had the Holiday Inn with a roof over it, had like a little miniature golf course and a bar and a pool and all this weird stuff. It was like a little city and inside a Holiday Inn. It was, back then it was great. I don't know if they had, I think they probably had to have those in Texas. They had to. Those were all over the Big 8 area. Every town had one, Holodome. So I'm in the Holodome and I went out to Aggieville Friday night. I don't know if you've ever been to Aggieville. They have a couple places to, if I find a beer. So next morning, I get up and they have the hot tub in the middle of the Holodome. So I got to until 1, I don't have to be in the press box till 11:30. So I got out of the hot tub and kind of relax after a hard night in the Aggieville trenches. So lo and behold, I did not realize this was the Nebraska team hotel. So I'm in the hot tub, arms stretched out, my head back, and look up, and there's a tall figure standing over me. It's Tom Osborne. I had never met Tom. I'd covered him for a good 8 to 10 years, never met the man. So I'm about to meet Tom Osborne, and I'm in the hot tub, and he's not. It's probably a good thing. And so Tom wanted to, I don't know how he knew me, but somehow he found me, and he'd had the issue with something I'd written for the Star a week or two ago, where he thought he had his side had not been told. So he was telling me his side of the story, and I'm in the hot tub, and it's game day, and they're going to go beat K-State by 80 points, and but he was so polite, and I kept thinking, what's he thinking? What's going through his head right now? He's talking to a sports writer in a hot tub. What's he thinking about? And I just, kind of nodded along and chatted with him, and it was very surreal. And, years later, I was, I guess, emceeing an event with him. He and I have been a great relationship over the years. And I told that story to a breakfast crowd. And he got up and said he didn't remember anything part of that. So you'll have to take my word for it. It happened. But that's the kind of thing that would probably never, ever happen now. But especially with the Holodome. But I've been fortunate to cover sports when I did. The 70s, 80s, 90s. Didn't do a lot of A&M. Didn't get to go to College Station. The first time was 98. I've been to College Station from Nebraska 3 different ways. I flew to Houston. I drove up. I went to Dallas and drove down. And then the last time we went, where Bo Pelini had a little meltdown. I don't know if anybody remembers that. We actually spent the night in Austin and drove because we thought, well, we're close to 6th Street. Why not? We can never get a room in College Station ever. So that was never an option, unfortunately. So I've never really done the College Station tour. Still like to do that one year, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, Tom, appreciate it. I know Travis always asks, your stuff is, is it omh.com, or how can they find your stuff? Because you're a great writer. These stories, I know they love them. You write the same way you talk, and you're opinionated and very funny. So tell them where they can get a hold of you.
Thanks. Yes, basically omaha.com.
Omaha.com. And
Omaha, very, very simple, omaha.com. And we're not having any sports to cover, we're sure writing a lot. So we've got plenty of material.
There you go. Of course, the World Herald is a sister paper of us here at the Eagle. So always good to have some good conversations with some people around the company. And be sure to keep TD Ameritrade warm for me. I'm going to be back soon. Hopefully, Good. It's one of my favorite places. So
we hope to have it. We hope to have the best one ever next year.
There it is. There it is. Well, Tom, thanks so much for joining us, and stay safe
Okay.
up there. And we'll be talking to you down the line. Be sure to check out his stuff, and we'll be back next week with another Aggie Sports Zoom